Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Civivi Amirite. Am I right? Is that the joke? I guess. I think that's how you pronounce it, unless it's based on some sort of rock or something that I don't know about. But anyways, yeah, a larger, very, very razor thin, super slicey button lock here from Civivi. Interesting, a little, step away from their normal thing, and then again, it still has some of their normal stuff. This knife is available in a few different forms, including Ultim, if you're into that. I'll link everything down in the description so you guys can check it out if you want to. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's, of course, entirely up to you. Thanks so much to Civivi for sending this knife in for me to take a look at. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. All right. Let's go ahead and get a measurement, because this is bigger than what they normally do. Overall length is actually 8 1/4. Blade length, if you measure it down here all the way to the back of the frame, we're looking at a 4-inch blade. Realistically, though, it's about 3.75 inches of blade, and then just shy of 3 1/4 for cutting edge, thanks to a large forward choil. How about some size comparisons? Any custom scales you see can be found down in the description under Original Goat and others. Up against the Cold Steel 8010, you can see here, it's what we're looking at. We're looking at an 8010 sized knife, pretty much. It's slightly shorter, but pretty much. And then up against the 8020.5, a little bigger there. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? Definitely about the same as the Spyderco PM2, maybe a little bit bigger, certainly in terms of height. And then finally, up against the Benchmade Reptilian, in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. All right, how's the action? It's pretty good. It's a little bit of lock stick on this one, which I can't say is always the case with the Civivi knives. But what we don't have here is what I always refer to as plunge drag, and it's really because I don't actually know what causes it. I just call it that. That's what's happening in my head. If you push this really hard, I can get it to stop. But not if I just push the button how I normally do, it just drops. And I think it's because the blade is so big. So in my opinion, the action on this is pretty good, right? Now, a lot of people ask me, why do you always test button lock knives and nothing else? If I'm not hearing about a ton of issues with a certain lock in the community, then there's no reason, to test it. Usually I can tell, like with a frame lock, you can tell if there's slippage there, right? And then certain companies do frame lock geometry really well. Button locks, though, I would say have the highest and broadest failure rate. We got the safety gauntlets on here. Civivi generally doesn't have an issue with their button locks. And this is the same deal. We're fine. So it's not just button locks in general. I have seen the most failures on button locks, right? It's button locks from certain companies. The geometry can be done correctly, right? Civivi does a good job with it. I don't generally have a problem with it, so that's fine. The lockup here is good. No knife needs to withstand more force than that. If you think that a pocket knife needs to withstand more force than that on the spine, you don't know how to use a pocket knife correctly, regardless of what your grandpa told you. That is not how you use a pocket knife, right? So, in my book, that's fine. Oh, there's no stick there. Oh, I thought for a second I fixed the stick. Now, still a little bit of lock stick. Thumb studs are beautiful. Thumb studs are really nice. I love the style of thumb studs. They're very easy to manipulate. And honestly, with the detent being the plunge lock, this has got a nice clean break. It feels really good on the flip, and I think it's just the size of everything. So, yeah, the action is really good, if that's what we were talking about. I don't know, I kind of got off track there. Let's do carry profile. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. Honestly, it's about the same. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. It's pretty big, right? It's pretty tall because of the blade shape. You're going to notice initially that this is in your pocket if you are transitioning from a PM2 or Para 3 sized knife. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'll get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. So we have most likely a T8 pivot. Yep. And then also T8 body screws. And we do have the screws that are actually holding the clip in. Those are T6, but the filler screw, which it only requires one to hold the standoff in, whichever side the clip is not in, will be a T8. So minimal hardware and only T6 screws for the pocket clip. That gets a pass in my book. This will be beautifully easy to disassemble and maintain, so you're good to go. Let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness, and then we'll weigh it. So the blade stock thickness of the Amirite, pretty thin. 115 thousandths. Nice. The weight, what are we looking at for materials? Nitro V, G10, some peel ply texture G10, and then steel liners with skeletonization on the inside. So, still big though. I'm going to guess 4.7. God dang, that was a close one. 4.62. Okay. I think that's what people expected, right? Meat and potatoes time. This is basically the same Civivi handle that we've seen on so many Civivi knives. I can't call it a Civivi handle. This is like the handle that you start with before you start shaping it like differently. If you just want knife handle, like level 1 knife handle, like this is what it looks like. The reason that we see so many is because it's just it makes sense, right? The human hand is shaped in a way that makes this an accommodating shape. So ergonomically, it's good. And that choil, God, nice big choil with a low profile flipper tab in the open position, meaning this is ergonomically, it's very sound. This is also a great blade shape for day-to-day stuff. It's the utility blade shape. It's just really big, right? Your draw cuts, no problem. Slicing with this thing, oh my gosh. This thing, man. I was just laughing, you know, while I was looking, this just dropped. Beautiful, beautiful cutting geometry, fully flat ground, right? Plenty of knives that can do that, but it's just so tall and so thin. It'll also be very easy to maintain given that it's just a long, straight edge. It's good looking, too. Now, it's not the first design to ever, you know, have this look, right? The trapezoid blade shape is certainly a prominent one. The rest of this is just typical Civivi, right? The texturing here and then the chamfer lines out at the edges. It's got that big stupid Loch Ness Monster clip that they refuse to change, and you're going to feel it. But because the handle is so long, especially in the choked up position, not really that bad. This is one of the better ones. It's just longer Civivi knives where the pocket clip bill goes back further here and doesn't end up here. It's just easier for my hand to choke down, I guess. Nitro V, great steel, right? Nitro V is a steel that we see on inexpensive knives, and we also see it on custom knives. As you guys probably just recently saw, this current run of the Nick Schuprin custom Ragnarok is using Nitro V steel. It's got a nice balance, nice clean grain structure, right? It is on the more expensive side. You know, it's not necessarily a budget steel, and it's also not necessarily, you know, the most ultra premium steel. Before we get too deep into discussion on that, I gotta remind everybody that sometimes we see CPM 20CV and M390 coming in at under $100, and people blindly assume that it's like the god of pocket knife steels. So, you know, in this case, it's not, you know, I'm saying that because it's like the arguments about whether or not it belongs on a custom knife are pointless. If we're going to, you know, argue about that, then you also have to argue whether or not 20CV is appropriate for a custom knife and a lot of other steels, honestly. But that is a rant that I probably should not have started because now there's going to be an unavoidable conversation in the comment section. Nitro V, I think, is just fine. It does often cause knives like Civivi knives to be more expensive, which we're going to circle back to. Everything's great. Typical Civivi production quality. Very, very good. Fit and finish is excellent. There is a lanyard bar thing. We have a standoff, then we have a pin, then we have a lanyard bar, then we have another standoff. So you have, for whatever reason, a bunch of different styles of things back here. Why did we need that additional pin right there? I think it would have been fine, but okay. Liners are not recessed, which is fine. No big deal. Pocket clip and screws are recessed, and, you know, left-handed and right-handed people, you're going to be good to go. Lefties, if you're going to squeeze really hard, and honestly, even right-handed people, no, you know what? Your index finger, the width of the frame, the button is backed up enough that really both left and right-handed people, it's probably, maybe left-handed people, if you squeeze it just right and you're choked up, might just have to be a little more cognizant. Right-handed people, honestly, the natural landing zone for your index finger is not on top of the button, so you should be good to go, right? Either way, the knife does fold, so just, you know, pay attention. Stop pin is located in its usual spot, and there's a crap load of shouldering. It's very deep. No blade play, up, down, left, or right. Runs on bearings. It's probably obvious. No pivot lash. A little bit of lock stick, like I said. Very smooth in here, and honestly, for it being a plunge lock, I mean, that's pretty nice, right? That feels like a detent ball, honestly. Perfect centering. No detent lash. What's the price? $76.50 is the base price. If Nitro V is the reason that we're getting these Civivis over $75 in a lot of cases, then I think they should just stop using Nitro V. The community largely prefers, when we're looking at this tier of knife, which it's a Civivi. In my opinion, Civivi knives should never cost over $75. Now, I'm splitting hairs here because it's really not that expensive, and it is a pretty cool knife, right? But if Nitro V is the reason that we're charging this extra amount and it's getting up, I have always drawn the line of a budget knife at $75. So maybe I have this like personal thing where I've decided budget knives cannot be called budget knives if they're over $75. Everybody has a different definition of that, right? But to me, Civivi knives, legitimately my own definition of budget or not, Civivi knives should not cost more than 75 bucks. They need to stay in that lane. And then their Sen cut stuff should be ultra budget and always cost under 50. Right? I understand that's it creates like a weird window. Ideally, Sen cut knives would be under 40. Civivi would be under 75, and then go nuts with We. It's all the same company, right? We makes the premium stuff, Civivi makes the kind of budgety, and then Sen cut makes the super budget stuff. It's lately Civivi knives have been pushing into an upper tier. Now, listen, we do something like this, right? That's a little bit harder. This is a really impressive Civivi knife. Civivi, if you want to start charging people more than $75, you're going to have to do stuff like the Vision FG on a regular basis, right? This is just a simple G10 steel liner button lock with a slightly more interesting steel on it, right? Now, it's not horribly priced, but really, I would have liked to see this come in at about 60 to 65 bucks. And again, if it's the steel, use something else. Use 14C28N. That would have been fine, right? But yeah, it's just kind of like, dang it, like I can't put this in the cheap knives I like playlist because my own rules on this channel are 75 or less. So if you like how this looks, I think you'll like it. It's just got a weird price tag, and it's only about 10 bucks higher than I'd like to see it. But, you know, it's neat. It's cool. If you like the big utility knife look, you know, and you like button locks, and I'm sure you'll be fine, right? The price isn't that hard to choke down. But it's just, I don't like seeing certain companies creep up. And I understand, like, price increases are unavoidable. If you didn't know, as time progresses, everything will inevitably become more expensive. That's how it's always been, right? Now, competition, right? As new companies rise up and try to, you know, leave their mark on the knife world, that's when we see prices that are lower, right? But you're not gonna, it's not like if you sit and wait with your arms folded long enough that the price of your favorite knife from your favorite brand is simply going to come down, right? Circumstantially, that's just like when retailers have sales and stuff like that. But generally speaking, as time progresses, things are just going to cost more money, right? So it's not that I want Civivi to change the price tag on this. I'm saying in the future, we should make choices with materials and design and, you know, things like that that allow for things to stay within a reasonable parameter, right? There will always be really, really, you know, good, knives coming in under $75. These companies will find a way to do that. They'll find a way to bring it in under $50, right? It'll take a long time before a budget knife is authentically like needs to be bumped up to the sub $100 territory. There's still way too many companies that are able to put out amazing things for sometimes under 30, right? QSP still does the Penguin for like 30 bucks. So I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh, right? This is still really cool, and the price isn't bad. Like I don't want anybody to think that I'm, you know, like, don't buy this knife. No, it's fine. It's really cool. I just don't. I wish it was a little bit less expensive, right? So made very well though. Okay, that's gonna be pretty much it today. I'll link the Amarite in all of its different variations down in the description. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.